Are you doing all you can to grow your savings? You'll want to hear timely tips from our credit union experts. But first, the temps may be pushing triple digits again, but the NFL is back. We'll explore the unique connections between our beloved pro football teams and Pennsylvania communities across the state with a Hall of Fame author and historian. That is next on Pennsylvania Newsmakers.
Welcome to the fast-paced and unrehearsed weekly discussion featuring the leaders who help shape your world. Join us as we address the issues that impact you each and every day. This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And now, here's your host.
Hi, I'm Steve Aaron, this week's guest host on Pennsylvania Newsmakers. We're going to take a break this week from the Pennsylvania state budget impasse and other breaking news of the day in order to make sure that we have an opportunity to talk about something much more fun. NFL training camps are underway this week for the Steelers and Eagles and all pro football teams. Pennsylvania has a unique and fascinating history tied to NFL teams and their training camps. And to talk about it is the one and only Ray Didinger, a Pro Football Hall of Famer, producer, author in Philadelphia, who has been covering the NFL for a very long time. Ray, it is a pleasure to have you joining us on Newsmakers.
Great to be with you, Steve.
So, Ray, I want to talk with you first about your own personal experience as a child. The community of Hershey is obviously synonymous with chocolate, but for many years in the summertime, it was synonymous with the Philadelphia Eagles, who held their training camps in Hershey. And a very young Ray Didinger would attend every summer, and it became the basis of a very popular play you wrote called Tommy and Me. Tell us about how that unique connection back when the training camps were right in town afforded fans like you an opportunity to really mix it up with the players.
Well, it did. The Eagles had their summer training camp in Hershey for almost 20 years, in the 50s into the 60s. And it was, if you were a big Eagles fan, and my family was, my mom and dad were huge Eagles fans, season ticket holders, went to every game. In the summertime, you could just get in the car and drive to Hershey and walk onto the practice field and stand there with the players and watch practice. I mean, it was that easy. It was that accessible. And we did. I mean, my dad had worked at a steel plant, and he got 2 weeks off every summer. And, while all of our friends and neighbors were going off to the Jersey Shore or going up to the Poconos, we loaded up the car and drove to Hershey. And for 2 weeks, we went to every Eagles practice. And back then, they practiced twice a day. They practiced in the morning and the afternoon on a big open field. There were no fences. There were no security guards. There were no ropes, no signs saying don't walk. I mean, it was a big open field right next to the high school stadium, which still stands in Hershey. But that whole area, which is now paved over for parking for Hershey Park, back then it was just a big open field. And that was where the Eagles practiced. So you could pull your car up, just get out and walk over and literally stand on the sideline. Some people threw blankets out and had a picnic lunch watching the Eagles practice. And if you were a kid like me, 10, 11 years old, you could wait outside the locker room where the Eagles dressed and get all the autographs you wanted. And my favorite player was Tommy McDonald, the great wide receiver. And I was waiting for him outside the locker room one day when he was a rookie, and he came out, and I asked for his autograph. He gave me an autograph and then said, come on, let's walk to the practice field, you and me. You can carry my helmet. And that was how it started. And from that grew a friendship that lasted 40 years and led ultimately to me to write the play that you referenced, which was Tommy and Me, which is now in its 9th year of production in Philadelphia.
That's incredible, Ray. It really is. Obviously, today the Eagles practice at their own training facility right across the street, essentially, from Lincoln Financial Field. But after Hershey, other communities had a chance to benefit, right? Westchester, Lehigh, among others, that had a chance to hold camps there. And I think other families with young kids like you had a similar chance, maybe not quite as wide open as it was then, but that must have been special as well when it was in facilities like Westchester and Lehigh.
Yeah, they went to... After Hershey, they went to Albright College in Reading. So they were there in Reading for a couple of years. Then they went to Widener in Chester. Then they were there for a few years. Then they moved out to Westchester University out in Westchester. But it was the same kind of idea. I mean, the players were right there. They were staying in the dormitories on the college campus, and fans could kind of, they were right there. I mean, and it was they were part of the community. And I thought that, I remember when we went to Hershey in the 50s, we stayed in a hotel called the Cocoa Inn, which was right across the other side of Chocolate Avenue. Everything in Hershey has to do with chocolate. And the Cocoa Inn was here, and the place where the Eagles stayed, their dormitory, as it were, was the Hershey Community Center, which is a big old building, which still stands right across the street. And it was not air conditioned in the 50s. So after dinner, the players would just all sit out on the steps around this big fountain. And so if you were a 10-year-old autograph seeker like me, you just walk across the street, and there was the entire Eagles team just sitting on the steps, just talking,
Incredible.
taking in the night air, and just walk around, get all the autographs, talk to whoever you wanted to talk to. And that was where, Tommy McDonald and I actually developed enough of a relationship over the course of those 2 weeks every summer that he started calling me little brother.
It's amazing, Ray. What a time. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll resume with Ray Didinger right after this.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania State Education Association, bringing the power of a great education to our schools, our students, and our communities. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Resuming our conversation with Pro Football Hall of Famer Ray Didinger about NFL training camps being back in business. Ray, for many years, the then Washington Redskins used to practice in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, and had a great affinity for that community. And obviously, the Steelers and Latrobe have gone together for many, many years. Have you had a chance to visit either of those places to see the impact of pro football in those communities?
Oh, sure. Not as a fan. My experience in Hershey with the Eagles was as a little boy, as a fan. Somebody was just being introduced to pro football. But later on, when I actually became a sports writer and covered pro football, I went to Carlisle to visit the then Washington Redskins in their training camp to report on the team and write stories, interview players and coaches. Did the same thing going out to Western Pennsylvania, out to St. Vincent's College, Latrobe, which was where the Steelers had their training camp. And to your point, Steve, things have really changed. The Eagles now, they no longer go away to training camp. They practice at their facility down in Philadelphia. Similarly, with Washington, they no longer go to Carlisle, to Dickinson College. They do their all training back in their facility down in Virginia. But the Steelers are one of just a handful of teams that still go away. They still honor that tradition. And they still now every summer they go back to St. Vincent's and Latrobe, which is right outside of Pittsburgh. And it's very much like what Hershey was back in the day. You have incredible access to the players. The players have to walk down this almost like a trail from where they dress, the field house, down to the practice field. And the fans line that trail, and they can talk to the players, they can get autographs. Players will walk over, get pictures taken with their fans. You can just reach out and touch them. And this was true in the 70s with the Steel Curtain, with that great team that had 10 or 11 Hall of Famers. If you went to practice there, which I did sometimes, you're in Franco Harris and Jack Lambert and Joe Green and Mel Blount, and they're walking along and getting pictures taken with the fans. You could just reach out and touch them. It's the kind of thing you just can't do in pro football anymore, but that's the way it was back then. And there was an interesting connection with the Redskins up in Carlisle at Dickinson. because at that time they were known as the Redskins. They were still known as the Redskins, and here they were training in Carlisle, which was the home of the Carlisle Indian School back in the day, which at one time had one of the best college football teams in America, led by Jim Thorpe. So there's a real heavy Indian influence up there. And here you had the Washington Redskins up there every summer for training camp back in the years when they were also very good, being coached by George Allen, going to a Super Bowl. And then the Joe Gibbs teams, which actually won 3 Super Bowls. The people in that community developed an affinity for those players because they lived with you for an entire summer. So you got to know Sonny Jurgensen. You got to go to the luncheonette with Art Monk. I mean, they were part of your community, and you became kind of a family. And I think those relationships and those attachments remain to this day.
Ray, before I let you go, we only have a short time left. I want to put you on the spot. What do you think is more likely this season, the Eagles returning to the Super Bowl or the Steelers winning a playoff game? What do you think?
I would probably say that I think the Eagles have a very good chance to go back. I mean, we all know how challenging it is to try and win back-to-back, but the Eagles are, I think everybody would agree on this, whether you're an Eagles fan or not, they're the best team in the league. I mean, they really are. They have the best roster. They have the best players, and they're still young, and they have an excellent chance to go back. However, I think the Steelers, I'm going to be very interested to see what happens with Aaron Rodgers there, because this is his last hurrah. There's no question about that. And he's a Hall of Fame player with a lot to prove in his own mind. So I think the Steelers are going to be a little bit better than people think. Let me put it this way, Steve. I think both of those teams, both the Steelers and the Eagles, will be playing into January this year and playing for a chance to go to the postseason. But if you ask me who's the most likely to get to the championship game, I would probably lean towards the Eagles.
I think you just made a lot of Pennsylvania football fans happy on both ends of the state with that answer, Ray. And so good of you to give us this time to talk about your memories of training camp. Ray Didinger, thanks so much. We'll be back on Newsmakers right after this.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by CrossState Credit Union Association. Credit unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, go to ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Association of Pennsylvania State College and University Faculties, representing the faculty and coaches who are devoted to providing quality public higher education for Pennsylvania's college students.
Welcome back to Pennsylvania Newsmakers. We're going to transition now and talk with 2 leaders from our credit unions, Donna LoStocco, First Commonwealth Federal Credit Union, and Patrick Conway with the CrossState Federal Credit Union. Great to have you both here. So the previous segment, we were talking football. Maybe people want to start saving for season tickets or whatever it is that they need to save for, right?
Great segue.
But I know that you have some important tips that you want to share about helping people manage their savings, which doesn't have to be overwhelming, right? Is it kind of the message if you take the appropriate steps? Tell us a little bit about how to get started there.
So a lot of people wonder why they struggle when others they see around them don't struggle. And sometimes there are reasons. The family you're born into, if you're born into a family that has no knowledge or experience with good financial habits, that's what you're going to learn. And so there's a reason you maybe are struggling more than your neighbor. However, you can always change. And that's the story for today.
And it sounds like you kind of start with a budget. And one of the things you guys shared, which I thought was interesting, that a budget gives you power. It tells your money where to go rather than you wondering where your money went. Right, Pat? It all starts with a budget process.
Right, Steve. It's a great point. You know, having a plan for your finances is really important. Understanding where your money is going, you know, how much you're taking in and how you're spending it is critical. So, you know, it's surprising actually how many families don't have a budget. And so it's really important to just have that roadmap and try to stick to it. You have to be flexible. Things change. Families have emergencies. But by having a budget, hopefully you've allocated something for that. And you sort of try to stick to the plan. It really does. It really is helpful.
And you also recommend setting clear goals, right? That's another tip. It's like really being goal-oriented. How can that help you as far as making sure you're saving appropriately?
So people, when they hear the word budget, the previous topic, it scares them. They think it's something complicated, when in reality, all it is writing down what you're spending. And even if you just write down what you're spending and don't make a single change, that can make a difference, because the aha is, I can't believe what I spent last month. And so that alone, to your point about a simple goal, just start writing down your expenses.
And does that help keep you motivated?
Yes.
Right? If you've set a goal of something you want to save for, when you achieve it, that's a great motivator, right?
It's a huge motivator. And your achievement doesn't have to be huge. It can be something as simple as, hey, my money's not making it to the next paycheck. I'm running out of money before my next paycheck comes. It may be a goal that I can make my money last to the next paycheck. It can be as simple as that.
Pat, what about an emergency fund, right? We all have unexpected events that happen in our lives, right? We've set these budgets, but there can be emergencies. How important is it to have that fund set aside?
Yeah, it's critical. Things pop up, big and small, emergencies that families face, and having funds set aside to help manage that unexpected crisis is also a critical part of having a family budget. The Federal Reserve says 37% of American households really would have difficulty with a $400 or a $500 crisis of some sort. So, we encourage people to have 3 to 6 months of their living expenses in an emergency fund. So when those, unfortunate circumstances arise, you're able to manage through that. And again, it doesn't have to be intimidating or difficult. It just needs to be a part of the family budget planning process.
These are great tips. We're going to continue our conversation with our experts on savings in just a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania American Water. We keep life flowing across the Keystone State.
Welcome back to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, continuing our conversation with our experts from the credit unions. We left off talking about the importance of an emergency fund. And even though everybody, I think, is well-intentioned and wants to do that, I think many times it's hard to, and the credit card ends up becoming the emergency fund when something pops up, but that can lead to other problems, right?
Absolutely. Don't use your credit card as your emergency fund. It actually ends up becoming another headache down the road. It feels daunting to say 3 to 6 months of savings. I mean, that when you figure out what that means dollar-wise, it's daunting. However, just start somewhere. $25 a week would be a huge step in the direction of setting up an emergency fund. And if you automate it, which your credit union can help you do, so that it's happening behind the scenes, you're not even having to do it manually, it's a great way to start, and you will be surprised how quickly it builds.
That's a great pivot, because one of the next tips is save automatically, right? Instead of doing it yourself every month, there are ways that you can set it up. Pat, are people taking advantage of that? Do you think enough consumers do set up automatic savings?
I think so. I think, and Donna could probably speak to this at her credit union, but I think in today's society, people are taking advantage of those electronic transfers and, setting it and forgetting it and having your funds transfer, from checking to savings automatically, so that the temptation is not there to spend it on something that you may not need. So I think by and large today, more families and people are doing that, and we certainly encourage that. It's a great way to save, just to do it automatically.
Donna, has today's technology with apps on our phones and everything that's available made that much easier for people? And are they trusting the technology?
Yes. The folks who embrace it are trusting it. It's the habit. It's starting the habit of actually tracking your expenses, going back to what we talked about earlier, of setting up that automatic savings, which many times you can do on your app. It's the actual habit of getting to make it happen, and then just being disciplined not to go back and use those funds for something else.
Is it something that most people are setting up through their employer, where they're asking their employer to help with automatic savings, or are they doing it manually themselves from their own checking or savings account?
I'd say most are doing it manually, but the employer's another option. You can divide your direct deposit. Most people get direct deposit if their employer has that option. You can actually divide your direct deposit to go half in your savings and half in your checking, or just do $25 a week in your savings, or every 2 weeks in your savings and the rest in your checking. So that's another way to automate it. Very
good. Pat, I want to talk about tapping into credit union support, right? And you both are expert on that and the opportunity that credit unions can provide. What is the unique process or the unique proposition of a credit union that can really help with savings?
Sure. Great question, Steve. I think I like to think of our credit unions across the Commonwealth as the trusted financial advisors to families and communities, small businesses, and take advantage of the relationship that you have with your trusted financial advisor. Utilize the financial coaching and the tools and resources that credit unions bring to helping their members and help their communities. Credit unions are basically not-for-profit banking institutions, so what would be profits for shareholders are, able to be reinvested in better rates, lower fees, and really helping the credit union member locally in the community. So take advantage of that model and really utilize the relationship that hopefully you're able to develop with your trusted financial advisor or your credit union.
Donna, when you speak with your customers at your credit union, what are they telling you about what they like to take advantage of and the experience at the credit union that they have?
Most people come in to see us or call or chat with us online, and they have a problem and they don't know how to solve it. First Commonwealth has invested in 60 certified financial counselors, and that's putting our money where our mouth is. Credit unions were created to help folks who need the most help, low to moderate income individuals. We serve people from all walks of life, but we are uniquely suited to serving low to moderate income individuals. And those folks don't necessarily grow up with the knowledge of how to do the things we've just been talking about. Credit unions are uniquely set up, like the 60 financial counselors, who will, for free, just by being a member, sit down with you, look at what you're doing, and educate you on kind of a couple changes that can change the trajectory of your life.
Well, these have been excellent tips. We appreciate you coming and joining us and sharing them with our audience, and hopefully people will feel more confident with their ability to save for the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
That'll do it for this week's edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers. Great talking NFL football and savings today. We'll see you next week.